It's your boy, Remoy George Phillip, the first.
And it's Samantha and Zessie Kifler.
This is Masculinity.
The show that investigates the performance of masculinity in the world today, and you know we spell it with a hard K. So, Remoy.
Yes, Samantha.
Well, at some point last season, you revealed something that's sort of related to what we're talking about today.
Oh, absolutely not. I have no idea if I did. No way. There's no way I could have. Did I?
Well, you did reveal they used to pop not one, but two collars back in the day.
Never said that. I will never have admitted to that on air or in any capacity. Nope.
That was you. I mean, you tried to hide it, but I found it eventually. I'm a detective. I'm a detective. But you know what?
All right, Sherlock.
Thanks. I mean, for what it's worth, we all did, right? We were all in the club in the early 2000s in our little business casual fits.
Were we?
You were. We were. And maybe this was your dandyish era.
My what?
Your dandy era. As in, dandyism.
Actually, I don't, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, like the Met did the whole thing on it this year and had this dope exhibition about menswear over the years.
I mean, I know the Met be doing a lot of fashion stuff and stuff I don't know, so I don't know what you're talking about. I'm lost.
Okay, so the Met had this exhibition this year called Superfine, Tailoring Black Style, which got a lot of folks excited and curious, including someone with whom I had a great conversation about it, actually, Joe Wilkes. Yeah.
Okay.
He's an editor, he's a writer, he's a marketing savant, and he also happens to be a fashion stylist, which is pretty dope. So he's been writing and talking about masculinity, fashion, culture, and shared a lot of dope knowledge. And you know what? Let me go ahead and share a little snippet of what's to come.
All right, Joe. All right.
The whole American dress code was built for white, straight, corporate men. Mm-hmm. And everyone else has had to shrink, edit, or erase themselves to fit it.
Oh, wow. Okay. There's a lot to unpack here. I'm not mad at this.
100%. And we're getting into it right after the break.
Curious about next-gen men? We're a small part of a much larger movement to undefine masculinity for a brighter future. Our mission is clear: empower the next generation to use their curiosity, empathy, and courage to build a more equitable world. Join the Next Gen Men community as we learn and unlearn together. We're here to support boys and men to break free from limiting stereotypes. We're not just an organization, we're a catalyst for reimagining masculinity and fostering inclusivity. We're here to help open up possibilities for what men and boys can be. Explore the world of Next Gen Men at nextgenmen.ca and join the community to make a difference. Next Gen Men, shaping tomorrow's leaders one step at a time. Join us and help undefine masculinity and empower the next generation of men to lead with empathy and courage.
We're back, and we're talking about Black dandyism today.
Yeah, okay. Like, this Joe guy, this clip, it's got me cooking. I'm interesting. I don't know what's going on, so maybe you can help me out. Let's slow it down a little bit. What actually is this Black dandyism he and you were talking about?
Yeah, let's start there. We actually started there with Joe, and here is what he told me.
Black dandyism just harkens back to this era in this style of bold colors, really sharp tailoring, standout detailing, accessories. And it was really seen as a way of fashion as both refusal, presence, and pride.
Oh, all right. I can start to envision it, see it maybe in my brain space, especially like kind of thinking like what the Met is doing. And like you mentioned that exhibition, Superfine type of context vibe.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Like I'm seeing like, I'm seeing it. Bright colored suits, patterns, wide ass lapels, the whole, dandy 9. Let's go. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, like, yeah, some were colorful, some had a lot of accessories, some had a lot of patterns, some had a combination of those. And as you can imagine, with the history of class and white supremacy in this country, of course, that was primarily afforded to white men until actual workers who were enslaved took it on themselves. So here's Joe with more.
Dandyism itself is just kind of was this style of dress that was a little lavish and extravagant that white people would put on. And essentially what happened was when you were a slave owner, of course, slaves were your property. So the more lavish you were, the more lavish your slaves would also be. Once we brought about the ending of slavery and Black people were finally able to make decisions on how they dressed themselves, we kind of took that. We adapted that. It became a lot about emancipation. It became about self-expression. And for the first time, people had control of how they looked, and wearing a sharp tailored suit, it was defiance.
So fashion sort of gets used to stratify people, as we can see, right? It's like a mark to assess class and socioeconomic position. Does that track? Like, can you see that?
Well, okay, yeah. Now that you like bring it up, yeah, and like what Joe said, yeah, I can, especially like men's clothing, like suits, Dapper Dans themselves, like total Mad Men class vibes or whatever.
Yes, exactly. So when Black men took it up themselves, that totally subverted the supremacist and capitalist order, right? Like they were defining their own dignity and their own sense of power at that time.
Okay, yeah. I'm hearing you, and I'm excited to get there, but like, is there just Black dandyism, or is there like, I'm assuming that there's white dandyism considering what you were talking about earlier, or like even if it's like European, or is it American? I don't know. Help me out.
Well, funny you should ask that, Remoy, because Joe referred to it as dandyism as the American dress code that was built for white corporate men. But it traces back to European time. So let me go ahead and paint this picture for you.
Okay, Bob Ross, let's go.
Okay, well, before dandyism per se, European men were dressing according to the Victorian ideal, right? Like if you look back at pictures from the Victorian eras, Regency period, all that, basically from the 1700s to the 1800s, you'll see men wearing the precursor to the business suit men wear now. A coat with a pop collar, a vest, knee breeches, which are basically knee-length pants, and a blouse with an extravagant necktie peeking out. So a lot of frill.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, I'm visioning it. I see it. But that's not what became to be called dandyism, right? Like, this is just more Victorian era dress?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. But that's way more extravagant than the suits we have now, right? So, like, what happened? Or is that what actual is dandyism that? I don't know.
Well, actually, great question. So a lot of folks attribute that transition from ornate and extravagant dress to what came to be known as dandyism, meaning well-tailored, clean lines and stoic colors, to an Englishman named Beau Brummel.
Beau Brummel. I don't know. RGP1, Remoy George Philip the First. Beau Brummel. I like mine better, but whatever. Okay, Beau. I see you.
Funny thing, actually, Beau's name is actually George. I don't know how he came up with Joe. I don't know how he came up with Beau.
My Georgie brother. All right, Beau George.
More like than you thought. So Beau Brummel actually called himself the first dandy, right? Like how this came about.
Just like a Beau. Just like a George, honestly.
Okay. The first, right? The first dandy. So how this came about was that Brummel was friends with the Prince Regent, who would eventually become King George IV.
And he's hanging out with like the class elite. My guy George, my guy Beau, he knows what to do, how to do it. I see you, dog.
I know. Where are your Prince friends? It's okay. We could talk about that later. So Brummel was charismatic and well-dressed, so his views had a lot of influence in these aristocratic circles, right? Like he would attend these posh events wearing styles that were so much better tailored, more somber colored compared to the other attendees. His clothing really favored functionality over frill.
Yeah, okay. This is interesting because, we're vibing with the big colors, but his push is for, as you say, somber colored or functionality. But what do you mean when you say that? What does that mean? Or what did that look like when he was doing it?
Yeah, so basically, before Brummel, color used to sort of be a way to flex on your friends, right? Like it was a sign of the upper class in Regency Empire times in the Western world, going back to the Roman Empire. So royals have specific colors that they wear during significant events or portraits. And it was to the point where if folks considered to be lower class wore color that was associated with the elite, they actually could be jailed or even executed in Roman times, which is sort of wild to think about.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like you could be jailed for like stepping out of line. Actually, that's not surprising, but for color's sake, that's kind of wild.
It's just worrying.
Why?
Well, it was a way of classifying everyone at a glance, right? Like you could look at someone and know exactly what level of wealth they had or level of wealth they didn't have.
Okay. Yeah. This is, now that we're sitting here for a second, yeah, this is crazy. It's like, even for dudes, past, present, future, specifically in the past here, it was their literal costume, and you kind of like had to perform your class or stay in your class, and if you didn't, you'd get locked up. That's wild. I mean, not wild, but again, wild.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because colorful clothing meant that you had money for indigo dyed clothes, for purple dyes, which were really expensive, and of course made exclusive, even if you managed to get your hands on some. Like, that was reserved for the aristocratic classes.
I mean, people weren't getting their jeans at the Old Navy, their selvage denim at the Old Navy. Come on. Shoot.
I mean, at least the Gap, let's go middle range there.
Shout out to the Gap, bro. Shout out to my former employer.
Shout out to Gap. We all worked there at some point.
We both did.
So then to your point, Brummel's highly tailored style starts to take over all the classes in the early 1800s, right? Like elite classes start adopting this look, and then it makes it out of the palaces and into the working classes.
Okay.
And the darker and more functional clothing also works then because the Industrial Revolution is making everyone a lot more dusty with all that pollution.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, it's becoming universal, ubiquitous. It's like this like equalizer then, or at least in like clothing and appearance and dress for men specifically.
Yeah, exactly. So what's interesting with Brummel is that he actually did not come from an aristocratic background.
Ooh, I get you, dog. Working class, bud. Working class, George. Let's go.
It's like you identifying hardcore with this 18th century man. But hey.
Yeah, I know how to project. Let's go.
So he did go to Oxford and Eton is where Princes Harry and William went, and also like a few the UK prime ministers also went. So that gave him a proximity to wealthy people and their extravagance, right? And this is a big but.
Okay, I'm interested. I'm keyed in. Let's go.
Like these fancy universities are actually where he developed a disdain for flamboyance. Like he was like, fuck that.
Let's go. My guy, Bo, really is a hater. I get it. He gets me. I get him. We are fucking the same George.
You would be friends.
Maybe I don't want to be, but like, for now, we're just going to say we're the same George.
Well, yeah, he definitely wasn't into it. So he starts coming around with bravado and people take notice since he's a future king's friend. He stands out in these circles wearing black and dark neutral colors with full-length trousers rather than the knee breeches that everybody had on, better fitting clothing, and a groomed look. And honestly, all of this kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of getting back to that kind of corporate American uniform look, both in the early 20th century, but even now, yeah.
Exactly. Like his whole thing was that men should have understated elegance without drawing attention to themselves. And people did listen and they followed the trend. Like at this time, men start to take on sort of this more stoic look, only including color and smaller accessories, if at all, rather than the suit itself. He's widely credited as the designer of the suit, as we've come to know it. It's interesting to realize that this middle-class dude befriends the future king and basically convinces everyone to dress more modestly.
Yeah, this is a really fascinating confluence of events. I wouldn't have foreseen that. I would have thought it was the other way around or something. I don't know. But it's interesting.
It is interesting. I wouldn't have foreseen that either.
Okay, but yeah, all right. So Americanism, as you were kind of American, like white dandyism, as you were kind of communicating, becomes this muted tailor, blacks, grays, maybe even beiges, I presume, the khakis, no?
Yeah, I mean, maybe light on the beige. You know how they felt about, Obama's tan suit. Shout out to the Sunday suit.
Wow.
But more or less, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Minus the Obama, especially in my next question. But how or why did black men, I guess, decide to go the more colorful route? How did that come about?
Yeah, so great question. So black dandies were all about the highly tailored look, but not necessarily about being understated, right? Like as newly freed men, this was really the first time that they could take the reins on what they dressed and generally looked like. So this was the opportunity to shine on their own terms. And it is said actually that a lot of them would save money to ensure that they were dressed to the nines.
Okay, fascinating. Do we have an example for this? You got an example for me?
Yeah, actually, you're going to like this as our, resident literati doy, Langston Hughes.
Oh, yeah. Whoa. Yes. Okay. Keep going.
I told you.
My freaking guy.
Exactly. So Langston Hughes is a guy who was often seen in bright, colorful suits, as were his contemporaries, actually, during the Harlem Renaissance. Big time for style.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, like people were dressed in the nines. But then again, honestly, like, color, yes. All these frills, yes. But the very fact that they were suited up, whether or not the suit was extravagant, was enough for them to stand out, right? Because they were defying what was expected of them as black men.
I want to just take a quick aside here. And yes, I'll be literary here. But if folks have never read Langston's collection called The Way of White Folks, written in 1923, I believe, or 21, you read that now, you're like, yo, this is now, not 1921, right? Like this was published like a week ago. It's hilarious and whatever. And like, it was a way of like him like using his literary chops to resist and fight back. And so like now I'm seeing it in this other way through his fashion or through fashion and like this black dandyism, right? So they were like, F your work and uniforms, white folk, white men. We're doing it our way. I love this.
I love that connection. Yeah, so the Black dandyism era peaks in the 1920s, right? With the Langston Hugheses and the Duke Ellingtons and all of that. And it's really thriving in Harlem, like I said, with the likes of W.E.B. Du Bois and a lot of jazz musicians. And then comes the zoot suit. And actually, Remoy, I want to ask you, do you know what the zoot suit is? Because you might.
Yeah, I mean, I know what that, I mean, I know like maybe the caricature of it, like it's like big boxy suits, pinstripes, huge lapels, like the fedora hats, the gangsta look. It's like the gangsta looks of the 20s, 30s, 50s even probably, something like that.
Yeah, basically exactly that. So the zoot suit is essentially an oversized suit, right? And it's heavily accessorized, and it was popularized in the 1930s and 40s, very popular among jazz musicians. Starts out in New York, makes its way across the country, and a lot of men would wear really colorful ones, and that really set people off.
Yeah, but, okay, why?
Well, two reasons, right? So first off, the zoot suit comes about around World War II, right? Like folks at the time are actually being asked to ration fabric. In fact, the government deems the suit wasteful. The second reason is that it was primarily young guys from marginalized communities that wore them. So like, starts off sort of like in Harlem. It's a continuation of Black dandyism, right? That was then becomes embraced by Jewish and Italian working class youth in New York and Mexican and Filipino American youth on the West Coast. So they were looking good in all that extra fabric. So naturally, the government had to criminalize it.
That is crazy. I mean, it's like a tried and true tradition, man. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it is. And so the zoot suit in the 1930s and 40s, again, is constantly being othered, right? It's a symbol of being other, meaning there's those normal or understated Mad Men type suits that are sort of like mainstream. And then their zoot suit are worn by the other. And, for Black and brown men, it was really empowering to take up literal space with that big suit while looking great. And they wore it with pride.
Let's go. Legends. Come on, bro.
I mean, there'll be more information about the zoot suit on our Substack, but it's really fun. Anyway, so then comes the 60s and the 70s. The spirit of resistance is alive and well, of course, in American life with the civil rights movement popping off. And that reflects in the fashion. So like think, if you can picture in terms of like Black dudes just like styling, think like the Isley brothers, right? Just like bell bottoms, color, and afros, just patterns, everything.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's fly, it's dope. But then it kind of starts to taper off as the 80s roll in.
Interesting.
Let's go ahead and pick up the tape back up with Joe to hear why this happened.
That, of course, goes back to the HIV/AIDS pandemic. At that point in time, it was very risky to be seen as flamboyant because that meant being seen as gay. So being seen as too stylish meant you put yourself in danger. Straightness, like the fear of queerness being invoked. There's this idea of how a man should dress.
So again, it goes to how fashion and fashion choices signal things in our society, right? And in the 1980s in the US, bright and loud clothing in men's fashion could be interpreted as queer. And there was such rampant homophobia at that time, which...
That's really tough and sad for so many reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, so sad. And honestly, it wasn't just blatant homophobia. Like, for men to dress exuberantly could also signal show of femininity. And as Joe stated, that isn't going to work in our society with all our unspoken rules and standards for men.
Still this idea that extravagance, bold color still has a connection to femininity, so then in turn has a connection to queerness. And I think that's a lot of what we have to contend with is we have invisible restraints of what I as a man can wear.
So there you have it. The fear of femininity and queerness, or at least in how you dress, being the worst thing for a straight man. Yes, yet again.
Yeah, it's really, obviously, I mean, we try to bring this to the stage, like how sad it is. Not just like the homophobia sadness and the othering sadness within communities, but more so just kind of that level of repression or like not allowing men especially to like access all of existence or their life or the ways that life can be beautiful and interesting and creative and playful and whatever. And so this is just such a, I don't want to like hyperbolically like describe that, but it is kind of tragic, right? It is really sad.
Oh, I would definitely say that's tragic. I don't even think that's hyperbole. I totally agree. And this did come up with Joe. Like, I wanted to know, because I mean, obviously we just mentioned straight men, right? But I wanted to know if queer men have more flexibility when it comes to this, right? Like, obviously homophobia unfortunately continues to thrive, especially these days. But perhaps within queer communities, there's more leeway. And here's what Joe had to say about that.
I think especially for me in my life, right, growing up as a Black boy, I realized really early on that celebrating one part of myself often meant putting another part of myself at risk, right? If my shorts were too short or maybe I walked with a little too much sway in the hips, it was a problem. Masculinity was a task that I just was kept being forced to retake. Right? And it was upsetting because I wouldn't know if I passed or failed because the rules weren't made for someone like me.
So hearing this from me really reminded me that even with what you wear or what men can wear, you still have to kill off a part of yourself to be seen as human, or you risk being othered or even harmed.
Yeah, it comes back to this thing like within this performance of gender, especially for men, cis, non-cis, queer or otherwise, like you just, there's parts of yourself you kind of have to kill. And that's kind of really sad.
Facts. And honestly, like what he said about the heteronormative spaces, like most spaces are heteronormative, like too heteronormative. So anyway, but I would be remiss not to mention that there are some men who are allowed to do whatever they want, wear whatever they want in some ways, right? Like it'll be passed off as whimsical or, interesting, whatever. And let's be clear, there is still criticism. Like I'm not saying there's no criticism, but they have a little bit more leeway. And I'm wondering, Remoy, who would you guess that would be? Who gets less criticism?
You say whimsical, and I want to go back to a previous episode we did where I educated you a little bit, or I kind of helped educate you here.
Of course.
It's got to be the wrestlers, no? Like I have no other kind of things. Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, no?
Oh, man, I love that this was your guess.
I'm sure Joe is a huge wrestling fan, no?
I would love to say yes. I mean, yes, to some degree in the ring, of course. Shout out to luchadores, by the way. But you know what? Let's see if you're right. Let's go ahead and let Joe tell it.
Harry Styles can wear a dress and get in vogue, right?
Yeah.
You see a regular man, me, right? I wear like maybe a sheer skirt or something like that walking on the street. I just get side-eyed on the train. There's a double standard, but it's a class thing. Most people can't afford to take fashion risks because for some of us, dressing different isn't just a statement, it's a safety risk. It's a risk of maybe losing your job. It's a risk of physical violence, especially for Black and queer people. We don't get that luxury because economic freedom impacts our stylish freedom.
So you were, in this context, maybe not correct, but you're kind of correct.
Yeah, I mean, wealthy people, the Harry Styles of the world, not even people, the wealthy men of the world who have kind of more flexibility. So access to class and privilege, for sure.
It's kind of interesting that hasn't changed. Like, it doesn't, like Joe said, trickle down to the everyman, right? The person who's working at Walgreens who also wants to, have maybe some red nails, maybe, like a hot pink, like necktie or whatever. So I think it's interesting that it kind of hasn't changed in a way. Like economic freedom, wealth really lets folks transcend certain masculinities when it comes to fashion and probably many other things. And we talked about fashion to judge someone's class, their sexuality at a glance. We've talked about how people are asserting their authenticity with fashion, right? Fashion is resistance as a political statement of sorts. But there is the one last thing that Joe eventually brought up that was so great. Joe talked about his nemesis piece of clothing, and it's kind of the perfect note to end on.
My biggest enemy is the black tux. There was a red carpet this past weekend, like the Academy Museum gala, and there were so many black tux. And there was a part of me that was like, be original, do something fun. My issue is when it becomes the go-to. If you're going to wear a black tux, be like Jeff Goldblum, who had this black tux. Yes. But the jacket was this like giant black puffer jacket, and he had these cool glasses, and it was extravagant. As much as I talk about fashion as resistance and rebellion, it's also about joy. I love when fashion becomes not just about surviving, but about finally looking how you feel on the inside. Mm. Because to me, that's the real resistance. That's healing.
I just love how we ended on fashion being a tool for joy and healing. Like, it's a tool for liberation, but also for happiness and authenticity and self-expression. And it feels like for men, it's not all these things, right? But it should be. Like, it's been mostly about survival, about just getting by. And hopefully we can get to something different where it is really about liberation and self-expression for men.
Yeah, like I'm thinking about myself in this, and I live in New York in this liberal bubble where there is, again, a little bit more flexibility, but still never fully embraced it myself. But I've always been interested, and I'm leaning more into it now. But, my family's from India and Africa, and so like South Asian or African clothing, like men's clothing is way more quote unquote dress-like and way more drapey and way more beautiful in that way and plays with color and brightness. And I'm leaning more into that. And so now, especially you putting it into this context and kind of spelling it out in this way, I don't know, there's something really empowering about that. And that's a stupid word, but like stirring or like, I don't know, like, it gives you the freedom to like even know that more and like lean into it. So yeah, I like this.
I like it too. Also, can we provide a picture for the socials of you wearing any African/Indian garb that you are dandying yourself in? Please, please. The people want it. They need to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You can get back to me. I'll just think about it. But, shout out to Joe. And of course, shout out to Jeff Goldblum always, an audience. Let us know how you feel. Like, is fashion a tool for resistance, for joy, for both, for neither? Let us know.
Yeah, holler at us. This is definitely the time to stay connected and keep having these conversations, guys. Actually, you know how you can do that all?
Tell them, Remoy. Let them know.
5 stars, 5 stars, meaning you can leave us a review. Please and thank you. And also, you can connect with us on the socials and as well at our website, masculinitypod.com.
Absolutely. Our handle is the same on all platforms at masculinitypod with that hard K. And that includes our new Substack. So we'll be posting every other Tuesday on the weeks we don't have episodes. And that's where we'll be adding some interesting interview tidbits that we couldn't fit into the episodes.
Yeah, so feel free to pass this episode along to a friend. Keep the conversation going. We've got lots planned for the rest of the season. And honestly, if it's just like this episode you just heard, I'm educated, I'm informed, I'm enlightened, I'm empowered. Wow, you'll want to be tapped in all. Let's go.
I love that. Yes, that's a fact. That's a fact. Until the next time, I am Samantha Nzesi Kifla.
It's your boy, Remoy George Philip the First.
And this is The Masculinity. Thank you for listening.
Peace.
Ciao.
We're back in it, baby. We're doing this shit. Let's go.
I know, we are.